Welcome back to What the FinTech, your FinTech Feel Good show. What the FinTech is a news and information platforms covering the latest FinTech development in Hong Kong, Singapore, China, and Asia. Join us every week for an engaging conversation with various Asian tech figures to discuss about entrepreneurship, emerging technology, customer engagement, and partnership. Before starting this interview, feel free to share your question in the comment sections, like and share. And today we have Darren from RIP. How are you, Darren?
Fantastic. Excited to be here.
Thank you very much for coming. I saw RIP everywhere for the last past months, and that
Very
was really
good.
exciting to have you here. I think the work you are doing is amazing. Congratulations for the Series A. I saw you raised around like 40 million USD, right?
We did. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Just before we speak about your company, I would like just to have the people know you a bit more.
Sure.
So maybe you can introduce yourself. Where are you from? What have you done before? And how you start RIP?
Yeah. Happy to do that. Thanks so much for having me again. I'm Darren. I'm one of the co-founders. You know, mostly work on the product and engineering side here at Reap. But my background is, I guess we can start from sort of in a non-linear way, right? I think immediately before Reap, I was working at Stripe on the payment side. So joined Stripe in San Francisco as the first member of their growth team, and then saw the company scale between from 90 to about 2,000 employees globally. And then 2015, they sent me to Singapore to kick off their growth expansions in Asia, specifically in Hong Kong, Singapore, Greater China, and then also worked on a lot of infrastructure side for Southeast Asia as well as Japan. Um, I think my journey really started off in Toronto, which is also where I met my co-founder Kevin. We've been best friends since middle school, back when we were 11 years old, right? And just throughout the, I guess, friendship, you have the opportunity to talk about different ideas, different problems that we were all having. So I think the collaboration and entrepreneurship side has always been something we've talked about. And then we went to high school together. We're very, very close to going to the same college, but ended up diverging paths. But somehow he ended up back in Hong Kong, and then I ended up back in Singapore, and then the conversations continued again, and one thing led to another, and I think in 2018 we decided to take the leap of faith and work on Reap together here in Hong Kong.
What was for you the turning point from quitting your jobs and starting RIP with your friend?
So I think for me, I've always wanted to do my own startup. So in between, quitting my job, my first initial job, and Stripe, I did a startup. That one was also in fintech, but didn't go as well as Reap as it is today, has it gone today. But loved the experience, loved the idea of rolling up your sleeves, building. It was my first foray into technology and the impact that technology can have on the society. And I think that was best catalyst for me to try and find a way to get into entrepreneurship again. But through that experience, I knew the importance of finding the right partner. Right? So before we started Reap, I really wanted to make sure that we had the right founding team and someone that I could trust and really rely on and really collaborate well with each other. And Kevin is someone that was always on top of the list for me to be able to sort of work with, just because of the friendship foundation that we had. So getting him on board was probably the first, I guess, key turning point in even starting off this entrepreneurial journey. So I would say that's probably the one that really, comes to mind.
Okay, perfect. Maybe you can explain what is doing RIP in details, because there is a lot of noise about it, but maybe some of the people listening to this podcast or watching this video doesn't know what you are doing exactly.
Sure. Reap is a financial services platform that enables access and financial connectivity through innovation. We combine our expense management platform with innovative payment products like our flagship Visa corporate credit card to ultimately orchestrate success for businesses by digitizing their finances and helping them make smarter spending decisions. Um, then we really think about ourselves more as a technology and software platform where I guess the initial flagship product is our corporate credit card, but there's a ton of, you know, controls, reconciliation, automation that we provide on the back end to really try and drive more value to the financial suite that this CFO and finance teams ultimately control. So that's sort of I guess the arena that we're playing in.
And what was your first product when you created the company? What was the first thing that the corporate came to see you and start to use?
The first platform that we built was on more of the payment side. So we help businesses send and receive money digitally through credit cards. And that was our first, I guess, interaction with a lot of these businesses, interaction with facilitating credit cards. And combining that with our own credit card application process, we knew number one, how difficult it was as a digitally led business. And two, as we scaled, it was becoming increasingly difficult and time consuming to manage all of our expenses with a more traditional corporate card. And so, therefore, we knew that there was going to be an opportunity because if we felt this way, then obviously other startups and more digitally enabled and digitally focused businesses will feel the same way. And so, hence, in 2021, we decided to issue our own corporate credit card.
Pretty exciting. Especially in Hong Kong, you have a lot of banks who don't issue credit card for corporate here. So I think you solve a lot of pain points in Hong Kong. Did you start the business here in Hong Kong or it was directly globally in Asia?
For us, we started in Hong Kong, but I think we started in Hong Kong because of the global access that Hong Kong typically has in its role within Asia, but within the globe more broadly, right? Hong Kong historically has been such a great landing spot for international businesses. It's been an international hub in so many different ways. Has such a diverse set of people, but at the same time, I think the complexity of the different problems that corporates face is also very unique. So it gave us a lot of different perspectives from a culturally sort of more Chinese local sort of business set, but also a very large critical mass of international users that were also here in Hong Kong. So I think having a very diverse user base to interact with, to learn from, I think gave us a lot more, I guess, insights into what their main challenges and pain points are. And I think corporate credit card, as mentioned, is one of the ways that they are able to access, vendors and services on an international level. And we wanted to make that experience significantly easier and more accessible than it is today.
Interesting. If I am a company and I want to come to you, how I should reach out? I should go to your website. Do you have any app? Or is it working through, like word of mouth or like connections?
Yeah, I mean, it's doing podcasts like this to really spread the word, right? So for us, yeah, everything in terms of onboarding, can be done online. So we've really, number one is enabling access, right? And access really starts with breaking down all of the different friction points of getting sort of connected to all of these different apps. And within financial services, accessibility has traditionally been not the smoothest in terms of speed, user experience, and that was the first thing that we ultimately wanted to change. So everything can be done online and can be done through a self-service process. But obviously, as the product has gotten more complex and as you want to learn more about, ultimately how you can engage and how you can use the product, we obviously have human beings behind the scenes to be able to help you navigate through that process if needed.
Interesting. How many iteration did you do on your product? Did you start with like a first version and after this, from the feedback you receive, you did the other versions, or it's mostly because you see how you can improve that product directly and did it like this?
I think iteration is probably one of the secret powers that startups are able to do than more traditional, more established companies aren't able to do in as easily, right? And iterations are something that we constantly do on a daily basis, not just for building product, but the way we think about building organizations, choosing where to invest, which sort of opportunities to take on. It's always an iterative process for our product. It's almost always day one, right? Where the corporate credit card is a point of entry to really build and understand the different financial flows and get data insights about a lot of these businesses. But ultimately, we want to really help them enable growth and find a way to be able to connect them to other vendors and services all over the world. So for us, because of that ambition to do more than just corporate credit cards, it's always a very iterative process. We have constant conversations with our existing users on how we can improve the product, and also not just sort of incrementally improve it, but find other aspects about their business that we can help digitize and bring value to, right? So that's why I think a corporate credit card, because of how broad it is and how many different functions it touches, has the opportunity to give us insights across many, many different function teams and employees.
I'm sure you develop a lot of features on your platforms as well. So can you maybe explain what you have developed recently, for example, and what you are exploring right now?
Yeah. So one of the things that we came about recently is the ability to apply spend controls, right? So for us, I think no one had that we've talked to really enjoys the expense management process, taking receipts of little expenses here and there. It's an area that is a pain, not just for the employee, but for the finance team, for the managers that need to approve it. So one of the things that we came out with recently is the ability to create cards that can only be used on certain merchant categories, right? They can only be under a certain amount or can be used between a certain time period. So, for example, you can issue a card that can only be used on Ubers or it can only be used at restaurants because that's for dinner stipends and things like that. So, not only does it remove the need for businesses to go through the receipt capture process, but it also gives peace of mind to the management team, to the finance teams, to allow them to have more financial control, but also more visibility into all of this, their employees spend. Right?
Maybe my question would be stupid, but are those cards physical or are they like digital cards you have on an app and you can use directly to the point of payment?
They can be both,
Can be
right?
both.
So they can be both. Yeah. So the ability to issue virtual cards, as many virtual cards as you like, is something that can be done very easily through a card. But if you want to, take your clients out for a nice dinner, physical cards would obviously be a core part of that process as well.
Interesting. Can you maybe explain a bit more what is your business model? Because your company is a new business model, definitely. And for example, for some of the banks are looking at company like yours to partner. So can you maybe guide us through that business model and how you drive your organization?
Yeah. So from a business model perspective, we take transaction fees from the merchant side, right? So for the cardholder, it's actually free, right? So it's similar to consumer cards, where if you're using it to buy coffee, to buy goods and services, you don't pay anything extra, right? But it's the merchant network that pays us. So if you buy something from Zoom, Zoom will pay us a certain percentage of that transaction. And I think that's something that has global reach, right? And that's one of the most powerful parts about being part of the Visa network is that if you are tapped into the Visa network, you're able to that card can be used anywhere where Visa is accepted in over 200 countries all over the world. And that's an extremely powerful way to be able to connect all of the different services that you ultimately need to pay for through the Visa network. So we monetize that way, right, as our primary source of revenue.
Interesting. It's something we don't see often here in Hong Kong. So I know some of the pain points from the companies are like one, they want to, for example, pay membership with Amazon Web Services or like some of the softwares they're using or even the Google Suite. So your solutions can really solve them a lot of pain points and problems right now.
Yeah, I think especially as these vendors become more applicable to a broader set of audiences in all over the world, right? I think folks in Asia are trying to sell to the U.S. Folks in the U.S. are trying to sell to Asia, so you need some sort of connectivity between all of these different vendors, different partners. So going global and finding a way to connect all of these different parties is incredibly important, right? To be able to elevate the ecosystem to a new level. So I think corporate credit cards is often the gating factor, right? Zoom only allows you to pay using credit card. Facebook and Google mostly only allow you to use credit cards. So as these businesses think more about international services, international customers, they have to find a way to be able to connect with all of these services. And that's why we feel like the corporate credit card is going to be the catalyst that allows people to connect that and provide that access and be able to connect that, have that connectivity.
I like these visions. What distinguish your company RIP to other company here already in the region and, being your competitors or delivering kind of similar services than you?
So I think when it comes to corporate credit cards, banks, and more traditional players like American Express have been doing it for decades. But I think because the consumer purchase experience and the corporate purchase experience is so different, the role of software is our biggest differentiating factor. When we look at, for example, buying a coffee as a consumer, right? You go to the coffee shop, you buy the coffee. As long as you get the coffee, it's hot. You're done with that experience. For businesses, it's fundamentally very different, right? That purchase, as simple as coffee, needs to be approved. It needs to follow a certain budget. You need to ensure that there's a receipt that can be captured, and ultimately, it needs to be reconciled into some sort of system of records that you keep. So, because of that, purchase and procurement process for something as simple as coffee touches so many different teams and functions. I think the role of software is instrumental in streamlining that process, making life easier for everyone involved in terms of managing those transactions. So that's the biggest differentiator for us to be able to provide a more digital experience there.
Did you see any change recently with the COVID and the way that people are also, resigning from their company and being entrepreneurs? Um, by compared to a couple of years ago when you started the company in 2018, did you see any change in their, like behaviors or the way they operate right now with corporate credit cards?
We have. COVID has definitely accelerated the adoption of digital solutions in general. And I think because of the ease and I guess, the incremental efficiencies most digital solutions are able to provide to businesses in Asia. What we've seen is that even more traditional businesses, think manufacturing, um, think logistics, are now starting to really think about digital not less as a cost center, right? But more as a way to be able to grow, make their internal operations more efficient, and ultimately empower their employees to do better work, right? So I think that change in mentality and mindset has been amazing to see, and obviously we want to be working in facilitating more of those changes in mindset to be able to adopt more digital products, and hopefully corporate credit cards can be one of those ones that they really think about and value.
Before we speak about a bit more about your team, I would like to ask you a couple of questions about the challenge you faced when you started. Did you
Sure.
face any challenge at the very beginning of your adventure, or do you still face right now some challenges?
Challenges are a constant, right? I think if you're not doing hard things, sometimes it may not be worth doing. So I think for me, at the beginning, it was incredibly hard to hire people, right? To um, sort of get the product up and running, and build the initial MVP took a lot of convincing, right? And then as we started to sort of get some traction and scale, I think Kevin and I are both extremely sort of hands-on founders. So we've basically tried out every single function, including ones that we probably weren't qualified to try, like things like design, um, to be able to just get a sense of what that process looked like. So a lot of it was, being able to hire for the right people, figuring out which part of the internal operations we could delegate, and be able to find folks that are much better and more experienced than us in managing. So I think as we've evolved, our ambitions have also gone higher. We've gone from serving Hong Kong to finding ways to be able to serve a more global audience. We're launching our US dollar credit card soon as a testament to that. So we want to be able to create a boundary, sort of borderless sort of world where there's a lot more connectivity and access. So now it's finding a way to sort of even elevate those expectations even more by working with different segments of users, larger, more enterprise users instead of just folks in the SME segment. So I think every single stage, every single year that we've grown, the challenges have gone higher, right? And we want to find ways to embrace that and find folks that are up to meeting that challenge and sort of conquering those obstacles.
I think you just share a bit about your motivation, but can you elaborate a bit more of what is the motivation who makes you keep it going to create this company and growing year after year and having many successes?
Yeah, I think it's for me, it's about I guess setting smaller incremental goals, and what we talked about before around iteration, right? I think that is something that getting those smaller wins and setting those goals is something that I think has kept me fairly motivated because you need to be able to embrace and celebrate those wins in order to continue moving forward. Because you know, running a startup, it's a lot of it you're fighting against the grain, right? There's a ton of friction. You don't have the brand, the resources to sort of um, you know take the standard path forward. So for us, it's about taking and being creative with our solutioning and embracing and cherishing those sort of the ones that do work out and finding ways to have more experiments that work out rather than fail, but also being okay and with the consequences of failure, but then learning a lot from those. So I think it's about setting sort of smaller goals. That's a pretty common thing for me. And then the second thing is when I look at Asia, right, and I think the opportunities within Asia, there's such an abundance of opportunity, and I think it's really starts with the contrast in terms of the way that businesses use software here versus places like the US, right? So I think if we're able to get users to or businesses to adopt more software to think about their digital experience even more, I think they will elevate and take Asia to the next level. And that's something that I think from I guess a high level perspective is extremely exciting to see because in spite of the lack of adoption of digital solutions, I think Asia's already found a way to um, you know be at the precipice of innovation even from a global perspective. So I think that's very exciting to see.
And I saw recently, last week instead, very good news about your company. So you raised a
Yeah.
really huge fundraising on Series A. What is the plan for you to continue to grow with this Series A? Because most of the people, when they raise funds, is to expand the company, right? Or by geography, or in terms of product, or to grow and acquire other companies. So maybe you can share what is exciting about the coming years for you.
Yeah. So I think for us, we touched on this a little bit, but I think the idea of creating a borderless sort of connected world is something that we're pretty excited about doing. So finding a way to go global, right? To take out all of the infrastructural advantages of being in Hong Kong, build solutions, but also make it applicable and relevant to a global audience. This is something that we're very focused on doing. And as a result of that, finding ways to hire in different hubs all over the world, but finding a way to connect, still continue to connect with the culture and the product experience of what we built here in Hong Kong. The second area that we're pretty excited about is building more infrastructure for the Web3 segment. I think it's one of those, I think blockchain is a technology that we're very excited about. And I think hopefully the next wave of internet enabled businesses would be built using some form of blockchain technology. And if that's the case, then we want to ensure that we clear up a lot of the hurdles for them to grow and for them to innovate. And so building that infrastructure, I think, is going to be quite important. So that's an area that we're focusing on as well.
At the FinTech Week, Web3 was a very big focus. All the bank had a booth about Web3 or metaverse.
Yeah.
Very interesting topic right now. Um, is your company based mostly in Hong Kong, or do you have like teammates overseas? And is your reach only in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Australia, or do you have like also country where your application is available and you can also help to operate?
Yeah, we have team members all over the world, folks in Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, Japan, Canada, Australia. I think for us, we've always thought about building a global team, a remote friendly team. And this was pre COVID, pre pandemic, right? So I think, we've always wanted to take advantage of the, I guess, global talent pool, just because having been started in Hong Kong, we didn't want to limit ourselves, right? So I think that's now, uh, you know, been the initial catalyst to be able to give us insights on how to build a more global platform and having I guess, the operational experience to also build out and support a remote first global team. And we wouldn't have been able to do that if we didn't start that way. So I think that's something that will hopefully continue to be an advantage for us as we think about hiring and growing a more global platform.
We are speaking about team hiring, but what makes a great team for you?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there's the definition, I think, of a good team is supposed to evolve, right? As your organization grows, I think the way that the structures of your teams, the way that the org functions, decision making, all of these things have to adapt as well. But I think for us, there's a couple of, I guess, key things that we try to, maintain as we go through the scale process. Um, I think for us, active listening, being a really sort of empathetic leader to be able to understand and contextualize a lot of the decision makes that we making that happens is something that I think we try to encourage at Reap. And we also, want to get alignment across teams, across different functions that may not be interrelated to really have visibility on the long-term vision and the goal that we have so that as they go through decision making processes and they have to make the hard decisions, they have something to anchor on, whether it's a North Star metric, a company value that they can use as, I guess, ways to be able to make decisions a little bit faster. I think that's a big part of the team culture that we've created as well, is to be able to sort of get some of those high level alignments.
As your team is global, how do you can you communicate the culture to everyone and make sure that everyone understands the value of your company, but also is a good fit on the culture?
Yeah, I think we try to live and breathe the culture. I think it's one of those things that you have to repeat again and again, and you have to lead by example in a lot of different ways, right? I think saying something or but not embracing it yourself is, I think, a little bit hypocritical at times. So we try to lead by example, and I think hopefully, we'll have also cultivated leaders within the company, folks that join early that will also be able to disseminate that culture as we hire more people, as we hire more people globally where communication becomes needs to be a little bit more asynchronous. So all of these things I think rely on the folks that join early, that were supporters early, to be able to continue distributing that culture as we scale.
The name of this podcast is What the FinTech. So it's mostly about collaboration between companies like yours and also, financial institutions, banks, credit card companies, and a few others. Did you find any difficulties working with them, or do you think that by developing your solution, you can be an extended arm for this company to collaborate with you and share the same, target customers or audiences?
Yeah, so for us, Visa has been an incredible partner, right? We are a Visa-backed corporate credit card, and they're not just from a branding, a reach perspective, but they're incredibly valuable in giving us access to the technology. This and sort of giving us and brainstorming with us on different solutions for a lot of the users that are pushing them from a product perspective as well. So I think has been phenomenal to work with them, and in spite of their size, they're actually very very nimble and innovative in the way they think about Web3 and the way they think about how do I enable more businesses to go digital. So I think they've been incredible to work with here. In terms of the sort of other banking institutions, we have had partnerships with them, right? To sort of find ways to collaborate, just because we do share a similar user base. There's areas of servicing and value and selling points that we ultimately don't own, right? So I think we do want to continue to rely on different financial partners to ultimately add more value to a lot of these businesses.
There is a question sometimes I got from people when I'm going to FinTech Week or few other things, few other events is like, do you think credit card is still an object that we need still today and will still be relevant in the future? As you are working on the credit card for corporate, maybe you have an answer for this question.
Yeah. I think the credit card and the traditional form of the credit card will definitely change, right? We may not have plastic anymore. Once a card has been issued, it might automatically be synced to your Apple Pay. Like even today, I very rarely take out my physical credit card to be able to use for purchase. I do feel like in the long term, the need for a globally accessible payment method needs to exist, right? And there's very little financial products that has that level of transcendence when it comes to geographic boundaries, right? You can take your Hong Kong credit card and use it in Europe, use it in America, use it in South America. There's very few products that have that level of reach, right? And you can't use your crypto wallet to do that. You can't use Alipay to be able to do that. You can't use your bank account to be able to do that. So what is the global, platform of choice? And to me, the card schemes still very much have a huge role to play in that. They have the merchant base, they have the banking partners. So the reach and once you are able to tap into that network is incredibly powerful. So I do feel like there's absolutely a role for the card networks and the sort of the card schemes, but the exact form factor of exactly what the card looks like, how it's used, the way that it's embedded will ultimately have to change.
Do you think financial institution can learn a lot about you as your software company and helping a lot of corporate right now, maybe SMEs, tech company, or e-commerce platforms? Do you think they can learn a lot from you because maybe they are super traditional and you are bringing like data and few other things that they don't have yet?
I think there's ways that we can collaborate with each other for sure, right? I think banks have done a phenomenal job with managing relationships often, right? To be able to have that level of scale is not easy to do, right? So I appreciate that about them, and they have certain sort of pretty solid distribution channel partners that we want to be able to learn from as well. But I think from iteration perspective, from a technology perspective, from sort of understanding what the new age modern business owner and entrepreneur think about perspective, I think there is ways that we can add value to the way they're thinking. And we would love to continue collaborating with them to give them that insights, because for us, we understand that it's hard to on this journey of digitization. It will take more than just us, right? So we want to find a way to educate the sort of business owners more broadly, and if we can do that through the partners of financial institutions, banks, and other players that has that reach, then that would be I think a net positive for everyone involved in the ecosystem.
Creating an healthy ecosystems, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
um, do you have any piece of advice you can share with anyone listening this podcast or watching this video?
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit circumstantial, of course, and sometimes I feel like I don't have the sort of credibility to provide some advice. But I think in general, um, number one, I think is don't be afraid to experiment. Right. I often tell the team that Reap is still at the stage where everything we do is experimental, right? And so we need to be able to sort of form certain hypotheses, test those hypotheses, and continue to iterate. But I think the other important thing to note is that with experimentation comes failure. Right? You have to really embrace the consequences of failure and accept the consequences of failure, or it'd be very hard to experiment at scale. So I think not being afraid to experiment, but also finding ways to embrace and learn from the failure is quite important. And I think for I guess the younger folks, is take more calculated risks, right? I think being in Asia, I think taking risks is a bit of a black mark sometimes, right? And doing things that are against the grain, zigging when people are zagging, right? Like so for me, most of the decisions that have gone well in the long term, I've chosen to take more risks than the traditional path. And if you're able to sort of find ways to learn from it, I think the value and the experience that you get is going to be far beyond doing something that has already been done in the past.
If anyone listening to this podcast would like to learn more about your field, do you have any article, blog, or podcast you can recommend?
Yeah, I mean, apart from this one, which I highly recommend,
Thank you very much.
I think I consume a lot of podcasts about building businesses. So I follow First Round Capital's podcast. There's a great entrepreneur slash writer in San Francisco called Lenny. Lenny's podcast, I think, is now really starting to pick up. They teach a lot about really hands-on experience about how to build. And there's also like more general interview ones that I listen to as well. A lot of audiobooks here and there, but yeah, generally speaking, I think those ones are pretty good for learning.
And my last question will be like where people can learn more about you and Reap.
We're accessible at reap.global. You can email me at darren@reap.global. I do check my email pretty often, so very accessible. So if there's any comments, questions, or complaints, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you very much, Darren. It was a big pleasure to have you here today. And I'm super excited about all the news I saw about your company recently. So
Hopefully it'll work out. Thanks so much for having me.
Looking
Medhy.
forward you have many success in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. It was Darren from RIP. So thank you for listening to this podcast and feel free to share it with your friends. See you later. Bye-bye.